And today we are going to discuss about two chapters. One is about the offenses relating to unlawful assemblies and followed by the offenses by and relating to public servants. So already we discussed this in when we conducted this common intention. I just compare only one provision when I had this. Today let us go in detail about this. So offenses relating to or in general, we can call it as offenses against public tranquility, which forms part of this chapter 8 of the Indian Penal Code. So if you talk about the public tranquility, it speaks about peace, law and order, maintenance of peace and everything. So இப்ப நம்ம எல்லாருக்குமே காமனா தெரிஞ்ச ஒரு விஷயம் என்னன்னா இந்த கூண்டாஸ் ஆக்ட் போடுறாங்க, டிஎன்பி ஆக்ட்ல போடுறாங்க அப்படின்னும் போது அதனுடைய கிரஸ்ட் என்னன்னா பேசிக் கான்செப்ட் என்னன்னா people those who are indulging in violating the public peace or law and order, maintenance of peace and tampering of public tranquility. இதுதான் வந்து அங்க மெயின் ஆப்ஜெக்டா இருக்கும். சோ யாருடைய ஆக்டிவிட்டியாவது அந்த பப்ளிக் பீஸ் மெயின்டெனன்ஸ் ஆஃப் லா அண்ட் ஆர்டரை வந்து டேம்பர் பண்ற மாதிரி இருந்ததுன்னா அவங்கள வந்து என்ன பண்றாங்க 1 இயருக்கு அந்த டிடென்ஷன்ல அவங்க பாஸ் பண்ணி வைக்கிறாங்க. So அந்த பப்ளிக் டிரான்குலிட்டிக்கு அகெயின்ஸ்டா நாட் ஈவன் an individual. So இங்க நம்ம பார்க்க போறது இட்ஸ் a joint liability. What we are going to discuss from section 141 to 160 is not going to be an individual liability. Entire thing going to be considered as a joint liability. அப்ப நான் காமன் இன்டென்ஷன்ல சொன்ன மாதிரியே காமன் இன்டென்ஷன் வந்து ஒரு இன்ஹெரிட்டட் ஆர் லைபிலிட்டியா வரும்போது இந்த காமன் ஆப்ஜெக்ட் இந்த அன்லாஃபுல் அசம்பிளி அப்படிலாம் வரும்போது இது வந்து ஒரு கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்டட் லைபிலிட்டி அப்படின்னு சொல்றாங்க. லா கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்டிங் த லைபிலிட்டி இஃப் யூ வேர் பி த மெம்பர் ஆஃப் தட் அசம்பிளி தட் இஸ் இனஃப் ஃபார் மீ. அப்ப லா கொடுக்குற கொஸ்டின் என்னன்னா எனக்கு நீ அதுல ஓவர்டேக் பண்ணியா இல்ல நீ அதுல எனக்கு வந்து அந்த அன்லாஃபுல் அசம்பிளில வந்து நீ ஏதாவது இல்லீகல் அன்வான்டட் ஆக்ட் கமிட் பண்ணியா அதெல்லாம் எனக்கு தேவையில்லை. நீ அந்த அன்லாஃபுல் அசம்பிளில மெம்பரா இருந்தினா போதும் நானே வந்து லைபிலிட்டியை கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ட் பண்ணிப்பேன் அப்படின்னு சொல்றதுதான் இந்த அன்லாஃபுல் அசம்பிளில கொடுக்கறது கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்டிவ் லைபிலிட்டி. அங்க இருக்கிறது இன்ஹெரிட்டட் லைபிலிட்டி லைக் கிரிமினல் கான்ஸ்பிரசி ஆர் காமன் இன்டென்ஷன் அபட்மெண்ட் இதெல்லாம் வந்து இன்ஹெரிட்டட் ஆஸ் பிகாஸ் என்னுடைய மைண்ட் அதுல இருக்கு, அது இன்ஹெரிட் பண்ணுது, அது அப்சர்வ் பண்ணிக்குது. சோ இங்க நம்ம பார்க்க போறது 141 to 160 ஐபிசில it is the constructive liability which covers the heart and soul of the chapter. What do you mean by unlawful assembly? What are the elements of unlawful assembly? So unlawful assembly அப்படிங்கிறது ஒரு சிம்பிள் டேர்ம் கிடையாது, ஒரு சிம்பிள் எலிமெண்ட் கிடையாது. அது உள்ள என்ன பண்றாங்க சில எலிமெண்ட்ஸை கொடுக்குறாங்க, அது கவர் ஆனாதான் நமக்கு அன்லாஃபுல் அசம்பிளி அப்படிங்கிற கிரைமையே நம்ம வந்து அந்த அஃபென்ஸே நம்ம உள்ள கொண்டு வர முடியும். So what do you mean by unlawful assembly? And what about the liabilities of members of an unlawful assembly? அப்போ அசம்பிளியா இருக்கிற ஒண்ணு எப்போ அன்லாஃபுல் அசம்பிளியா மாறும்? ஏன்னா எதுவுமே எடுத்த உடனே ஒரு அன்லாஃபுல் அசம்பிளியா ஆகாது. ஒரு ஜெனரல் அசம்பிளியா இருக்கிறது எப்போ அன்லாஃபுல் அசம்பிளியா மாறும்? அப்படி மாறும் போது உள்ள இருக்கிற மெம்பர்ஸ் உடைய liability என்ன? Then inevitably what do you mean by riot? And riot oda various dimensions. So the riot in the worship place, riot for the benefit of somebody else, riot in any of the premises or location. So idella riot kulla varum. Then 149 நான் சொன்ன மாதிரி common object, then affray. So இதெல்லாம் தான் நமக்கு எதுல இருக்கு அப்படின்னு பார்த்தோம்னா இந்த 141 to 160 நம்ம இன்னைக்கு பப்ளிக் டிரான்குலிட்டியில பாக்குறது. இதோட ஃபாலோ பண்ணி நம்ம அஃபென்சஸ் பை ஆர் ரிலேட்டிங் டு பப்ளிக் சர்வன்ட்ஸ் நம்ம அடுத்து பார்ப்போம். நம்ம சோ இதுல ஃபர்ஸ்ட் வர்றது definition of unlawful assembly. So நான் ஒவ்வொரு டைமும் நான் திரும்ப சொல்றது என்னன்னா ஐபிசியை பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் அது ஒரு செக்ஷனா ப்ரொவிஷனா பார்க்காதீங்க. You have to classify or you have to extract the elements from each and every definition. அதாவது ஒரு டெஃபினிஷனா பார்க்காம அது உள்ள இருக்கிற எலிமெண்டா நம்ம எக்ஸ்ட்ராக்ட் பண்ணி எடுக்கணும். ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் இப்ப நம்ம வந்து சமைக்க போறோம், இப்போ ஒரு சாம்பார் செய்யறோம் அப்படின்னா சாம்பாருக்கு தேவையான இன்கிரீடியன்ஸ் எல்லாம் நம்ம வச்சிருப்போம் இல்லையா? பேசிக்கா பருப்பு இருக்கணும், தென் உப்பு இருக்கணும், மஞ்சள் தூள் இருக்கணும், மிளகாய் தூள் இருக்கணும், தென் நமக்கு வேணுங்கிற காய்கறி என்ன வெஜிடபிள்ஸ் போட்டுக்கலாம், அந்த வெஜிடபிள்ஸ் வந்து நம்ம ஆப்ஷனா வச்சுக்கிறோம். பட் அதை தாண்டி இதெல்லாம் பேசிக்கா வச்சிருக்கோம்ல, அந்த மாதிரி ஒவ்வொரு கிரைமுக்கும் எலிமெண்ட்ங்கிறது தான் நெசசரி. இதுல ஏதாவது எலிமெண்ட் மிஸ் ஆகுதுன்னா அப்போ அந்த அஃபென்ஸ் அங்க கமிட் ஆனிச்சா இல்லையா அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு டவுட் எமிட் ஆகும். That doubt leads to benefit of doubt and acquittal. So with respect to this, definition is most important because it only make it out the elements. So அந்த ஒரு உருவகப்படுத்துறதுக்கு அந்த எலிமெண்ட்ஸ் தான் முக்கியம். அப்போ அந்த டெஃபினேஷன் ஆஃப் அன்லாஃபுல் அசம்பிளி அப்படின்றது ஃபர்ஸ்ட் எலிமெண்ட் என்னவா இருக்கணும்னா more than 5%, 5 or more. அப்போ நம்ம டிஃபரன்ஷியேட் பண்றோம். காமன் இன்டென்ஷனுக்கு மோர் தென் 2, கான்ஸ்பிரசிக்கு 1 இருந்தாலே போதும், அபெட்டாருக்கு 1. சோ அங்கெல்லாம் 1 or 2 மெம்பர்ஸ் தான் இருக்காங்க. ஆனா அன்லாஃபுல் அசம்பிளின்னு ஒரு அசம்பிளிய, ஒரு கேதரிங்க டெசிக்னேட் பண்ணணும்னா அங்கே மோர் தென் 5 persons must be there and the common object of members of the assembly. அப்ப இங்க என்ன சொல்லிடுறாங்கன்னா, அந்த மாதிரி அசெம்பிள் ஆகுறாங்க, எதுக்காக அசெம்பிள் ஆகுறாங்க அப்படிங்கறது அங்கே மேண்டேட்டரி ஆகுது. மேபி ஒரு 5 elements கொடுத்திருப்பாங்க. So this 5 elements should be there, at least 1 or 2 must be there depending upon the facts and circumstances of each and every case. So எல்லா unlawful assembly ஒரு பேசிக்கான காமன் ஆப்ஜெக்ட வச்சு மட்டும் அங்க அசெம்பிள் ஆக மாட்டாங்க. Each and every unlawful assembly has its own facts. So அந்த மாதிரி இந்த 5 elementsல ஏதாவது ஒரு எலிமெண்ட் என்ன பண்ணணும், அங்க satisfy பண்ணணும். So with respect to this common object, so in under section 141 itself, they insisted there must be an object which is common among the members. So if you want to attract any gathering comes within an assembly which want to designate it to unlawful, you have to establish that first there must be an object and that object must be common for at least 5 or more members of the particular assembly. It is not simply a 1 person or 2 persons object or thinking or intention. It must be an object of minimum 5 to 6 persons of the assembly, and the elements or the objects may be to intimidate by criminal force or show criminal force against central or state government or public servant while exercising their lawful power. So whenever there is a discharge of lawful power by the either the central government or a state government or the public related servants, those who are discharging their duties or those who are indulging a duty, and if any of the member of an assembly try to intimidate them by criminal force or showing criminal force against them, it amounts to an element of an unlawful assembly. That moment the assembly will be converted into unlawful assembly. And the second element is that the common object may be to resist the execution of any law or legal process. So for example, if there may be some eviction order is there, some eviction order against a temple or a church or a public space. So if anything is being discharged by the public servant under the, or if they are bound to do according to the law, they are bound to do. When this has not been permitted by any members of the assembly, that it is maybe the common object. So we are coming across several news items. If they want to extend the in national highways, or if they want to extend the road or for any infrastructure, if they want to demolish any temple or church or a mosque, then the entire village or some particular group of members will come and prevent or resist the execution of the legal process. So at the time, the collection of members of the same locality or the village, that collection of the members will be constituted as an unlawful assembly, and their common object is to resist the prevent or to resist the execution of the legal process. And third one is to commit any mischief or criminal trespass. So here again I am insisting, we all know that mischief is causing destruction to property or causing damage to property with some intention or with some knowledge. So or criminal trespass. So here the criminal trespass or mischief may be against the government property, or if it may be against the private property also. So if with the intention of causing any damage to the public property by way of causing, recently we came across that in Hyderabad somewhere, the iPhone company has been the local village people trespassed into it and caused damage to the entire office by way of causing damage to the property in the particular manufacturing unit or the office. This also amount to things. So those who are assembled there, they are forming part of the unlawful assembly with the common object. The common object here is that their wages has been reduced and their wages has not been paid, and to take revenge out of it, they gathered together and they came and attacked, cause mischief, cause damage. This is one sort of element. And another one is by means of any criminal force against any person to obtain the possession of any property. It may be the movable or it may be the immovable property. So here against any person with respect to possession of the property, it is the possession it may be the illegal possession. So not a legal one, because he is not a person who is eligible to enjoy that, or he is not a person who is eligible to, or he is not lawfully or legally receiving the property, but unlawfully he is receiving or taking possession of the property. So this is one sort of unlawful assembly element. And deprive the enjoyment of right of pathway or use of water or any other incorporeal rights in his possession. So preventing the enjoyment. So if there is any common water pathway, water passage or any other pathway. So if it has been deprived by way of collection of some members together by way of using this force or any other intimidation, depriving that person's enjoyment, that person's right. So here we can apply the easementary right also, where that any other persons in incorporeal rights in the possession. And final one is compel any person to do which is illegal or to omit which he is legally has to do. So either compelling a person to do something which he is not ought to do, or compelling any person to not to do something which he is legally ought to do. So செய்ய வேண்டியதை செய்யாம இருக்க சொல்லி கம்பல் பண்றதோ இல்ல செய்யக்கூடாததை செய்ய சொல்லி கம்பல் பண்றதோ, இது வந்து ஃபைனல் எலிமெண்ட். So with the 5 or more person, that may be the common object of 5 or more person. So we can differentiate this element with this element to resist the execution of any law or legal process. So this is something different with this one. So here it is a particular person. So where that particular person is being compelled to commit to do something or to not to do something which he is not legally bound to do. So this is the thing falls within this. So these are all the elements of unlawful assembly. So unlawful assembly is not simply an assembly by more or 5 which has the intention to do this 5 elements of it. Then 142 and 143 speaks about what is the liability of being a member of this unlawful assembly and what about the punishment. So either the person has joined the unlawful assembly with intention or without intention, with the knowledge or without knowledge, or by knowing it or not without knowing it. So it is immaterial. What may be the liability falls within this 142 and 143. So it starts with whoever intentionally joins or continue. So it gives you the mental element, or it imposes that if you are aware of it and if you are understand that the assembly has been designated as an unlawful assembly. So either beware of it or aware of it, having the knowledge about it, in spite of that, intentionally whoever joins or continue or renders any support to the unlawful assembly. So that person being the member of that unlawful assembly, and whoever being a member of the unlawful assembly shall be punishable with either description for a term which may extend to 2 years or fine or with the both. So as I told you earlier in the punishment, whenever there is a term like either description, which means 2 years is the maximum, and it is a discretion of the presiding officer to award either 2 years maximum punishment or 1 year or even 6 months also, depending upon the gravity of the offense, with the fine or without fine also. And this is 143, 142 and 143. And 144 is, which is something in additional gravity. Already it is an unlawful assembly. already he, with an intention, with a knowledge, the person has joined the unlawful assembly. Here, along with the unlawful assembly, he is going along with a deadly weapon. So what is the liability of being a member of an unlawful assembly with a deadly weapon? You can question, what do you mean by deadly weapon? What sort of weapons are being designated or being recognized as a deadly weapon? So there is no any prescribed definition either in the definition part of the IPC, not even here also. They may state it, simply state that any weapon which has been used for causing any injury or committing any offense or likelihood of causing death. This was the simplified either a definition or understanding or explanation regarding deadly weapon. If we want to move further, if we want to know what is exactly the deadly weapon, we can go and take the help of section 326 of the IPC, which speaks about voluntarily causing grievous hurt with a deadly weapon. So 326 gives you the list of weapons which are all considered to be deadliest in nature. So there they will not explain or they will not define the deadly weapon by its name, but they will define or they will state that what sort of injury might have caused by using this weapon. That is the beauty of section 326. If you check out in section 326, it states that any object which is used to cause any injury like stabbing or causing abrasion or causing fire injury, coercive substances. So in these types of explanation only you could see in this section 326 of the Indian Penal Code. We can take the help of that also for better understanding regarding what do you mean by deadly weapon. So it says already he is coming under the liability of 142 and 143. Along with that, one more liability joins here. If any of the member join any of the unlawful assembly with a deadly weapon, he will be punished with either description for a term which may extend to 2 years with or without fine. So this is with respect to 144, joining unlawful assembly, and 145 and 151. So I'm not continuously going from 145 to 151. I'm just clubbing together 145 and 151 because 145 and 151 will speak the same nexus. So 145 is that joining or continuing an unlawful assembly, knowing it has been commanded to disperse. This is 145. And 151 is that joining or continuing an unlawful assembly of 5 or more persons after it has been commanded to disperse. So what is the slight difference is that already under section 145 it is going to be a command to disperse, and under section 151 5 or more person where already it has been commanded to disperse. So 145 and 151 states that liability of the person who are continuing in an unlawful assembly where it has been commanded or already commanded to disperse. So ஒரு unlawful assembly கலைக்கலாம் சொல்லி ஒரு ஆர்டர் கொடுத்துட்ட ஒரு அசம்பிளில மெம்பரா இருக்கிறதும் கொடுக்கறதுக்கு பாசிபிலிட்டிஸ் இருக்கிற ஒரு அன்லாஃபுல் அசம்பிளில மெம்பரா இருக்கிறதும் இதோடைய லைபிலிட்டி தான் நமக்கு 145 and section 151 of the IPC. So after it has been lawfully commanded to disperse. So lawfully commanded now, let us take simply the help of help of some provisions of CRPC. Preventive measures for the maintenance of law and order. So even then there also you could see 144, 145 and 141A, these elements. So there you could see who can pass this preventive measures notice or orders. So latest in recent past we came across this curfew, lockdown, all these things falls within that. So whenever there is an order issued by the authority, it may be the commissioner of police or the collector or any executive magistrate, that no one should assemble. So not more than 5% should assemble after 6 o'clock or 10 o'clock. If it is so, it is a punishable offense. So it states that after 5 o'clock or after 6 o'clock, when there is a preventive, and it says that after 5 o'clock it has to be dispersed. இது வந்து நமக்கு it will cover in one section 145 and 151. Or if anyone gather after 6 o'clock, it falls within 151. So already it has been lawfully commanded to disperse, but still when a person, 5 or more person joined and gather as a group, it forms within this 151. இப்ப நமக்கு ரீசெண்டா லாக்டவுன்ல நம்ம வந்து நிறைய நியூஸ்ல பார்த்தோம், பேப்பர்ல படிச்சோம், 6 மணிக்கு மேல 7 மணிக்கு மேல இருந்தா அரெஸ்ட் பண்ணாங்க, ஃபைன் போட்டாங்க அப்படின்னு நிறைய we came across several memes on that basis also. So these things comes within this 141, 145 and 151. So the punishment for these two sections are 6 months with a fine for section 151. So for which after the lawful disbursement has been commended, and any person who continues in the unlawful assembly where it has been commanded to disperse is section 145, and the punishment is 2 years of imprisonment. So here, as I told you earlier, it is equivalent to section any assembly or any member joined or coming under section 151 is equally coming under the liability of 141, because 151 is continuing the unlawful assembly. For what purpose? It is answered in section 141, 5 elements. So now, as I told you, the first definition, if to commit any one of the 5 elements of the act, so this 151 will falls within it, and section 151 is equally punishable under section 145 also, because as I told you, the difference between 145 and 151 is knowing such unlawful assembly has been commanded by law to disperse. So I know that this assembly has commanded to disperse. By knowing that, I'm joining into it, it is 145. And 151, after that unlawful assembly has been commanded to disperse, still I am continuing in it, comes within this 151. So this is the basic understanding regarding 141 and 150. Then the next provision is riot. Most important thing, riot. So riot ku Tamilla nama kalagam அப்படினு சொல்லுவோம். So riot and various forms of riot. So riot with the deadly weapon. So what do you mean by riot? Again, so it has not been properly established under section 146 of the Indian Penal Code. So there was no any specific definition. What do you mean by riot? It simply states that any force or violence used by any unlawful assembly or by any member. That's it. This is the definition given by 146. So for example, government they got the permission, one particular organization, a particular group got permission from the government to conduct a procession to show their agitation regarding some law or something rule. So while so on, some members of the particular organization already met and they plan to involve in some untowards even when they are going for a procession. So this was not known to any other members of the particular organization. So the procession is going on. For example, I take that it is going on in the Mount Road. All of a sudden, some members, those who already planned, pelting stone on the public buses, causing damage to the nearby shops, and sometimes committing extortion, robbery also when these riots happen. This is a proper example for riot. So any force or violence used to that moment, that permission granted or a lawful assembly were turned into unlawful assembly. Till that moment, it was a lawful assembly. Once the members of the lawful assembly start to commit violence against the public, that is the moment it convert into unlawful assembly. So by any members thereof, or in 5 or more members sit. In the common object of such assembly, it is the clear example how it says every member of the assembly is guilty. Though it may be 150, though it may be 200, though it may be 500, though it may be committed by only 10 or 15 members, the act of 10 or 15 members will attract the liability of rest of the 400 members, 450 members into it. சோ இது நாங்க பண்ணல, எங்களுக்கு தெரியாது, நாங்க பொசஷன்ல தான் கலந்துக்க வந்தோம், இதெல்லாம் நம்ம என்ன பண்ண முடியாது. நம்ம அங்க அந்த ஆன்சரே நம்ம ஒரு டிஃபென்ஸா எடுக்க முடியாது. தான் நான் சொன்னேன், இது ஒரு கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்டிவ் லைபிலிட்டி. உங்களுக்கு தெரியுதோ இல்லையோ, நீங்க உள்ள இருந்தீங்கனாலே it will come and take the liability from you. So the punishment for this 146 is riot is that 2 years of with not which may extend to 2 years of imprisonment with or without fine, or with both. And 147 is rioting with a deadly weapon, the same thing. So already we discussed member of an unlawful assembly with a deadly weapon, the unlawful assembly which includes a riot also. So அங்க என்ன இருக்கு, the difference between unlawful assembly and riot. In unlawful assembly may or may not be the violent act happened, but in riot unlawful assembly is there, along with that violence is there, along with that during the violence some person are found to be in possession of some deadly weapon. So the punishment for them is 3 years, which may extend to 3 years of imprisonment with or without fine, or with both. Some landmark judgments are there with respect to 146 riot, common object, and attraction of this liability. So in 2000, the Supreme Court states that it is a Madhya Pradesh case, unlawful assembly to cause death. The common object of the members of the unlawful assembly is cause death, and if any death happened, the liability would attract the entire members of the organization, not the person who committed or who causes the death. And the nexus between common object and rioting was being established in this particular case, Alauddin Mian Sharif Mian versus State of Bihar in the year 1989. And common object, I think we already compared this common object when we discussed this definition part and the general defense part also. So every member of the unlawful assembly receives, it speaks about joint and several liability. So joint liability அங்க இருக்கு, individual liability அங்க இருக்கு. So any member of the assembly in furtherance of common object. So as I told you, in an organization or in the procession, the common object of the person or the members of the particular members of the organization is either to attract the public's attention towards them, or to attract the government's attention towards them, or to cause damage, that may be the common object of them, or to resist the public servant. Suppose if the procession has been prevented by public servant or police, so we know that what happened during this Jallikattu issue, so that was considered as to be the common object. So they were joined together and resist the discharge of the public servants duty. So all these things comes within it, and with the knowledge of likelihood of commission of an unlawful act. So they must have that. Furtherance means having knowledge regarding the likelihood, foreseeability. I could foresee definitely something would happen tomorrow. So this procession or this movement will not going to happen in a smooth or calm manner. Something or somebody will add something. Even by knowing that I'm joining into it, I'm attracting the liability. So whoever present at the time of commission of an offense is a member of an unlawful assembly found guilty. So either you may dispersed or you may there. Whoever present, though you are not participated in the overt act or not participated in the any of the unlawful act, simply one thing will attract your liability. Member is attracting the liability. To attract the constructive liability, prosecution has to prove the any one of the 5 elements as I mentioned in section 141. That is the as I told you, that is the characterization of 149 that has to be proved. Presence of person at the time of commission of the overt act as a part of unlawful assembly is sufficient for conviction. So as I told you, As I told you already, presence is enough for the court or for the prosecution. Need not to prove that the person has indulged or participated in the overt act. In the case Yunus Khan versus State of Madhya Pradesh in the year 2003, the Supreme Court reiterated. And once the membership of an unlawful assembly established, the prosecution need not to establish the overt act. So the foremost thing the prosecution need to establish to impose the liability on the members of the unlawful assembly is that he or she was the member of the unlawful assembly. That is enough. That itself prima facie, that itself receives a locator, where it need not to go for that. It's a substantive one, need not to go for a corroborative one. So this is the binding factor of section 149. This was again held in section 1 in 1997 by the Supreme Court. And section 150 speaks about hiring or conniving. Conniving means either convincing or satisfying or conspiring any person to join unlawful assembly. So either hiring or conspiring anyone to join unlawful assembly. So it may be engages or employs or promotes or conspire anyone to hire or employ or promote any person to join or to be the member of an unlawful assembly. So these things comes within this section 150. 152 is already we came across 151, which speaks about continuing in the unlawful assembly after the lawful disbursement. And when 152 is assaulting or obstructing a public servant when suppressing riot. So riot happened. So now three elements has joined together. One is unlawful assembly, second one is riot, and third one is any public servant who tries to prevent this riot or prevent this unlawful assembly to move further. If anyone commits any assault or obstruction, it is an offense covered under section 152 of the IPC. So what it says is that assault or threaten to assault or obstruct any public servant. So here itself I'm giving the clarification. Public servant includes the definition given under section 21 of the Indian Penal Code, because it is a general understanding. Public servant means either central government employee or state government employee or undertaking sector employee. But if you check out section 21 of the Indian Penal Code, it gives the list of the persons who are all the persons coming within the category of public servant. So here you can include those public servants. So sometimes it may not only the police force, it may sometimes paramilitary forces will come. Sometimes any other force which is meant for disbursement of unlawful assembly may come. So these things are also form part of this unlawful assembly. So assault or threaten to assault or to obstruct any public servant who is discharging of his duty as such public servant. So not only simply obstruct or threaten, that public servant should have involved in discharging the duty. So what sort of duty? Either suppressing or preventing this riot. So when whoever indulged in such a duty and that person was being assaulted or threatened to assault in endeavoring to disperse an unlawful assembly or to suppress a riot or affray. So here it includes affray also. The affray chapter on the so uses of threat or force against such public servants shall be punishable with imprisonment, which may extend to the term of 3 years or fine or with both. And 153 speaks about provocation of riot. Whoever provocate or whoever instigate or whoever makes others to indulge or to commit this riot. So here we have to think about in two perspectives. One is person who is provoking other to commit riot. Another one is out of this provocation person, those who are indulging in riot. So here dual liability is involved. It is not simply the person who is provoking the riot is also liable. Person out of this provocation shall not come and raise the defense that acted out of the provocation. So it is not, there was no any intention, it was not common object. So this difference will not work out in this particular chapter. So it says either malignantly or wantonly. So if you see in the previous section, it speaks about only intentionally or knowingly. Only these two mens rea were present in the previous section, in the previous element, which is denotes the mental element. If you see in section 153, it speaks about malignantly or wantonly, which means doing any illegal act or to provoke with the intention to riot. So, with some ulterior motive, with some ill intention, or wantonly, without anyone's instigation, the person who is provoking other to indulge or to cause such a riot for coming within this particular section. And this 153A, 153AA, and 153B, which is exclusively speaks about protection of national integrity, protection of communal peace and order, protection of societal harmony. So, which speaks about communal violence, hatredness, causing enmity. So, this is the specificity of section 153A, 153AA, and 153B. So I'm for a time moment, I'm simply comparing these three provisions with that of the international crime also. So now we are living in an era of international crime. We got the international criminal law. We got 4 international crimes, which is crime of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and a crime of aggression. Particularly these 3 sections, 153A, 153AA, and 153B, will have the slight resemblance of international crime of genocide. So what it says that the international crime of genocide says that whoever with the intention of destroying in whole or in part any particular group, that group, they gave 4 types of group, either based on race, religion, ethnicity, or nationality. So either if they want to destroy a particular racial group, and if they commit any act, they gave 5 punishable act. One is causing death, another one is causing injury, and third one is deliberately inflicting living condition, and fourth one is preventing childbirth within the same group, and fifth one is transferring of children. So the most important, why I'm comparing these 3 provisions with the crime of genocide is that the main object of crime of genocide is creating enmity, hatredness, or causing communal disturbance between 2 particular community. So till today, myself and my neighbor are very cordial, very friendly, very close together. But suddenly today night, somebody is promoting me with the enmity that your neighbor belongs to such a race. Your neighbor is not good. Your neighbor has caused so much damage to our race. Don't be friendly with them. So next day morning, I am creating enmity with my neighbor who was so cordial with me till yesterday night. So this is section 153A. Promoting enmity between any group on the ground of a religion or place of birth or residence, language. So on the basis of linguistic, or on the basis of residential status, or on the basis of place of birth, or on the basis of religion, by doing any prejudicial act to maintain, which causes damage to the maintenance of harmony. So we are living unity in diversity is our mantra. We are having that only, that is the speciality of our Indian constitution, that is the speciality of our Indian culture. So we have several cultures within it. We have several people, those who are speaking different languages, and there are different religions or that, but still we are in it together as an Indian. But whoever promotes enmity to cause any prejudicial to the maintenance of this harmony, those people comes within the liability of section 153A. The acts includes by through what sort of act they can commit this by way of, by through words, the words may be either spoken or written. So now we can include the electronic medium also, because at the time of drafting this 153A, there may not be the assumption that this may falls within it, because this comes in the year 1961. That time the drafters of 1968 it came into effect, these three sections. That time they may not anticipate that one day will come where they will use the social media, where they will use the electronic platform to create enmity. So now we can include these electronic devices also, the social platform also, social network also, like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, share chat, whatever it may be. By signs or by visible representations, promotes or attempt to promote or to impart enmity or hatred feeling between the above said group, which means religious group, or based on the place of birth group, or residential status group, or linguistic group. So disturb the public tranquility. So the common object of section 153A is to disturb the public tranquility by way of organizing any activity or movement or drill. So any activity in the sense going on a procession, or any movement is causing something. A drill means, for example, this will happen during this Vinayak Chaturthi time. We have to, after 3 days or 1 week, Vinayak Chaturthi idols will be taken in a procession, and they will go and immerse into the beach. Sometimes if they want to cross near any of the another religion group, if they are indulging in any prayer time, so want only to create such a disturbance, they will make noisiest drills, or very loud noise on using drums, these things. So this is a drill. And with the knowledge that the participant use violence or criminal force against any religious, racial, linguistic, or regional group, or caste, or community. So the ultimate object is to either promote or provoke them to commit violence, or make this person, who the members of this assembly, to commit violence against this person. So in this offense is punishable with 3 years of imprisonment, and with a fine or without fine. So if the same offense would have been committed in a place of worship, I told you, or assembly engaged in the performance of religious worship or religious ceremony, so it may be a gathering. So ஒரு Hindu திருவிழா இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு இதுக்கு gathering இருக்கு. There was a gathering for a Hindu temple festival. So that time, if any other group want only conducting any procession, or with the intention of causing disturbance to that gathering, it is very much serious when compared to the earlier. It says that here it is punishable up to 5 years of imprisonment with fine or without fine. And 153AA speaks about in the same 153A, along with the carrying weapon or arms. That is a thing which is, it says that 153A says that it is contravention of any public notice issued under section 144A. We recently come across this curfew or lockdown. So whenever there is a notice, no one should gather, or no one should carry on this and that. So in spite of that, whoever contravenes that, it also comes within that. So we know that during that in southern part of Tamil Nadu, whenever there is a Devar Puja or Emmanuel ceremony, there they will impose this 144. They will prevent to come with arms, weapons, and other things. So all these things. And 144A of the CRPC says that power to prohibit carrying arms in procession, or mass drill, or mass training with arms. Here arms is designated as weapon used for committing offenses, or which is used for this defense also. So it includes any firearms, sharp-edged weapons, sometimes lathi or also comes within it. This is 153W. And 153B speaks about imputation, assertion, or prejudicial to national integration. So any assembly who is taking part or with an intention of causing any disturbance to whom the above said group, religious, racial, linguistic group. So the same thing, by words either spoken or written, visible representation, or publishes any imputation. So for what in the sense, whoever upholding the sovereignty or integrity of India, or asserts, or counsels, or advises. So this member counseling the member of this above group, asserting the members of the above group, propagating the members of the above group to whoever being denied or deprived of their rights as citizen of India. So what they are asserting, what they are counseling, what they are advising, to impute something which is against the national integration. So as because you have been deprived, you have been denied these rights, you are all the citizens, you come and indulge in this thing. So whoever doing this coming within the liability of section 153B. And likelihood of causing disharmony or feeling of enmity or hatredness or ill will between the members is also coming within this 153B. So 154, again, I'm comparing 154 and 156, liability of owner or agent of the premises, either for the benefit of that person or not. So it speaks about if any lawful assembly or members of the unlawful assembly either staying, or that unlawful assembly has took part in that particular house or a premises or a location or any other establishment, the person either who are the occupier of the place or whoever having claim interest over the place, they will receive the liability either for instigation or abetment of this unlawful assembly, unless otherwise they are having knowledge of such a thing. If such knowledge has not been established by the prosecution, then they will not come within the liability. ஸோ அந்த லேண்ட் ஓனருக்கோ இல்லை அந்த லேண்ட்ல இருக்கிறவங்களுக்கோ இல்லை இந்த பிரிமிசஸ்ல இருக்கிறவங்களுக்கோ இது ஒரு அன்லாஃபுல் அசம்பிளியா இருக்குது, இவங்க வந்து ஒரு அன்லாஃபுல் அசம்பிளிக்கு போறாங்க, இல்ல அவங்க வந்து ஒரு வயலன்ஸ்ல இன்வால்வ் ஆக போறாங்கன்ற நாலேஜ் இருந்ததுன்னா மட்டும்தான் அவங்க அந்த லைபிலிட்டிக்குள்ள வருவாங்க, இல்லைன்னா அவங்களுக்கு அந்த லைபிலிட்டி இருக்காது. ஸோ இங்க ப்ரூவிங் டிஸ்ப்ரூவிங் அப்படிங்கிறது இந்தியன் எவிடன்ஸ் ஆக்டை வச்சுதான் நம்ம அங்க கம்பேர் பண்ணிக்கணும். So how they are imposing the liability against them is that on three aspects. One is when they fail to inform this to the nearest police station. What informing of what? Regarding the staying of these members of the unlawful assembly, regarding their plans to going to commit the violence next day, preparation or planning anything to the nearest police station, or if they through all lawful means, if they fail to prevent it, or if the other lawful means, if they fail to disperse it. So if these three things is been established, then they will receive the liability. And section 156 speaks about if the riot has been committed for the benefit of the landowner or the person who are receiving the benefit out of it. So here the punishment is only fine of ₹1,000. If in default of payment of fine, 3 years of rigorous imprisonment. And then comes the liability for the person, those whose benefit the riot is committed. So the earlier provision is the benefit of the landowner, and this provision is the person is not the landowner, he is not the agent or the manager, but he needs some benefit, so he is instigating or he is supporting or he is facilitating this riot. What is his liability? If it is committed on behalf or for his benefit, he is punishable with the fine, with the same thing. And 157 speaks about harboring. We know the definition in section 52A of the Indian Penal Code in definition clause. Harboring means either giving facility, giving accommodation, concealing the person, or helping to transportation, or giving any support for conveyances. So தப்பிச்சு போறதுக்கு ஏதாவது ஹெல்ப் பண்றது, மறைச்சு வைக்கிறது, இல்ல அவங்கள வந்து போலீஸ் இன்வெஸ்டிகேஷன் வரும்போது அவங்களுக்கு ஃபெசிலிட்டி பண்றது, இதெல்லாம் ஹார்பரிங்ல வந்து. So these things comes within the harboring of this unlawful assembly members. And then comes the hired person's liability. So this speaks about person those who are being hired So whoever been hired for money or something else, so what would be the liability of those persons? So it speaks about whoever hired or attempt to hire to do the elements which has been covered in section 141, they are punishable with the 6 months of imprisonment, either with the fine or without fine. And 159 and 160 speaks about affray. So affray is most neglected. So according to me, affray has not been come out when if it is compared to riot. So the difference between riot and affray is, if it is more than 5%, it is riot. If it is more than 2%, it is affray. So affray in Tamil we call it as சச்சரவு, பொது தொல்லை அப்படி கூட சொல்லலாம் நம்ம. Whoever fighting in public, not simply fighting in public. So because of that fighting, they are causing disturbance to public peace. So causing disturbance to maintenance of peace, law and order. So whenever there is a disturbance, if it is a public roadways, those who are fighting in the mid of the public roadways, which may cause destruction to the traffic or smooth the transportation. So these things comes within this affray. So punishment is 1 year of imprisonment and a fine that may be imposed. So these are the things which may cover within this unlawful assembly and riot and affray. The next chapter that is getting into is offences by or relating to public servant. Previously, it was from section 161 to 171. After the enactment of Prevention of Corruption Act, the 1988, from section 161 to 165A has been repealed, as because the substances of section 161 to 165A is equivalent to the provisions of these sections comes within this Prevention of Corruption Act. So the base is that receiving bribery, gratification, or something else to do or not to do something. So from section 166 to 171 only cover, the rest of the provisions only covers in this by or against public servant. Other than that, other offenses are also there against or by public servant, but I don't know why it has not been covered in this chapter, like fabricating false evidence by public servant, threatening someone for giving confession statement or statement during the course of investigation. These offenses are also there, but that is coming within other chapters. We will check out in the next class regarding perjury or false evidence. In that chapter, we could discuss that. And in the chapter of grievous hurt or criminal force, we will discuss about this. Any police officer by way of causing injury, grievous injury to any person during the course of investigation. So today we are going to discuss about only section 166 to 171. The first foremost thing is public servant disobeying law with intention to cause injury to any other person. So disobeying law is not a primary offense here. The primary offense is that what is the consequences of the disobeying of law. So simply disobeying the law without any injury to others in the sense, then it will not be covered. Out of such a disobedience, someone must someone must suffer some injury. So, for example, if anyone who is a bailey, he may be the bailey in the court, some EP order has been passed, and the person is asked to go and execute that petition. For it may be the eviction, but this bailey has disobeyed that order, and he failed to go and evict the premises or the house. So here it is an injury to the person in whose favor decree has been awarded. And because of his disobedience, if any injury has been caused, that public servant is coming within the criminal liability. So if you could see, the punishment prescribed for section 166 to 171 very rarely will go more than 1 year, or it is only up to 1 year. You could think, being a public servant, how could a person will commit this? How could a person will be punished only up to 1 year? Because here it is only the criminal liability. Even a single day imprisonment will have a serious repercussion in his service record. Even a simple payment of fine as a nature of penal sanction will have a serious effect in his service record. So he may lose his several increments, several promotions. Sometimes he might have been suspended without salary. So when that serious repercussions are there, that's why the punishment will not have such a serious effect into it. So being a public servant knowingly, it says knowingly and intentionally disobeys any directions of the law which he is bound to follow. He is under that law. It is his duty to bound to that, but he refuses to bound to that. Because of that, if any person suffers any injury, the person is liable to be punished for a period which may extend to 1 year or fine or with the both. And as I told you already, public servant includes the definition covers under section 21 of the Indian Penal Code. And 167 is framing an incorrect document with the intention of causing injury. So whenever the public servant who is under the duty to prepare some document, it may be, it says translation or document or electronic record. So he may be the commissioner of examination, commissioner of inquiry, he may be the commissioner appointed by the court, or he may be the police officer under section 174 of the CRPC, which means preparing report for an unnatural death. So if the death is being 304B, dowry death, it shows it is a dowry death, but he is preparing a false document. It is not a dowry death to protect somebody's interest. So these are the things comes with this particular aspect, and it says that public servant charged with the preparation of any document or translation. So such translation is on again two aspects. One is translating the vernacular language document into English, or translating the English document into the language known to the accused person or to the court. So whoever committing whatever within this translation, or whoever frames or prepares or translates with intention or knowledge to be incorrect, with an intention itself, they are preparing such a document. And because of this, somebody has suffering any injury or damage, they are being covered under section punishable with 3 years of imprisonment. With the same concerns, with the same essence, other offences which are punishable in another chapter is from sections 217 to 222 of the IPC, which speaks about the offences relating to false evidence, fabricating or creating false evidence and false document, like framing incorrect record to save person from punishment. It is the special intention. Disobeying direction of law with the intention to save person from punishment. This is another intention. Corruptly making report or contrary to law. Omission to apprehend on the part of public servant bound to apprehend. Omission to apprehend person under sentence. So these are all the offenses covered under in the next chapter. And 168 is unlawfully engaging in trade. So every public servant is prevented from engaging in trade other than the public service. It includes me also. It is it is an obligation on my part. I should not indulge in any trade as being a public servant. I am a public servant. I should not indulge in any trade or business or commerce. So if it is so, if any person legally bound not to engage in a trade, if in spite of that, if he engages in trade, he shall be punishable with imprisonment for a period which may extend to 1 year of imprisonment or fine or both. And 169 is unlawfully buying or bidding for property. So buying or bidding for property. So why this provision has been enacted is that, being a public servant, I should inform my authority, I should inform my employer. If I purchase any property, I have to show the source of income. This is the income I'm receiving from the employment, and this is the property I acquire, whether I am eligible to acquire the property within this source of income. If that property which I acquired is above the source of income which I am receiving lawfully from this employment, then I have to show the source. So if I show the source, if it shows that whether the property has been obtained through any other unlawful mean. But if the property comes out of any gift or family partition or inheritance, that is not a question. Acquiring, purchasing, that is the question. And bidding. You could see we can come across several tender call for, notification call for. It says that whoever working or employee of the particular department is prevented to bid. You should not apply for tender into this because you are the part and parcel of the department. You know the nook and corner, either by yourself or your family member or the relative should not take part in the bid. In spite of that, if any public servant indulge in it, they are liable to punish. Section 169, otherwise we can call it as benami transaction. Whoever purchase any property, whoever bid any property in anybody's name, they are coming under this. And it is punishable up to 2 years of simple imprisonment with or without fine. And section 170 and 171 speaks about impersonating. This is not impersonating as public servant. One public servant impersonating himself as another public servant. So he may be the subordinate officer, but he himself impersonate as the superior officer and making others to believe or assume that he is holding that office, and by way of that he is committing some offense. It is an offense under section 170 and it is punishable up to 2 years of imprisonment. And 171 is wearing some garb or carrying token. Armed category, martial group, army, navy, or air force, or police officials. So only they are permitted to wear the garb or some token or some medals. So whoever wear that without their permission, so they are coming or without their thing and make others to believe that they belong to such a category, and by way of such they committing some offense. So this is comes within this section 171. So these thing is also punishable under section with 3 months of imprisonment with or without fine. So up to this this chapter is over. This is for false part of these two things. One is offenses relating or by public servant, and another one is unlawful assembly. So this is over for today's class. In next class, we will discuss about the perjury.